Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast, a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts, America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today.
Welcome to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. Hello. I hope you're having a wonderful day. I have some wonderful stories to share with you. So if your day kind of started out a little bit, well, it's about to get a whole lot better because these stories are definitely going to put a smile on your face. They're going to boost that mood. My first one is definitely going to boost your mood if you are an animal lover because researchers have come up with a first of its kind. It's a wearable device that can monitor animals' health through their fur. It's pretty incredible. So researchers from Imperial College London have invented a first of its kind health tracking sensor for pets and people that can monitor vital signs through fur or clothing. So unlike humans, there are a lot of fitness tracking devices. There aren't currently any wearable or many wearable options for pets and other animals. The researchers suggest that the reason for this is because current trackers cannot monitor vital signs through fur. But this is a new type of sensor, and it can detect vital signs like heart and breathing rates through the fur. And as many as 4 layers of clothing, which is pretty impressive. So it could help make everyday wearables for pets and livestock in reality. It's pretty cool. So these devices could help owners keep track of the pet's health, help vets monitor animals during surgery without the need for shaving as well. They could even help improve the work of sniffer dogs used to detect bombs and missing persons. On the other spectrum, for human use, they could provide a new way to measure vital signs over clothing without direct contact with the skin. So the lead author, Dr. Frit Guter of Imperial's Department of the Bioengineering said, wearables are expected to play a major role in monitoring health and detecting diseases early. Our stretchy, flexible invention heralds a whole new type of sensor that can track the health of animals and humans alike over fur or clothing. So the new Imperial developed device is made of a silicone water composite material, which basically it houses a microphone that picks up sound waves, kind of like a watery, squishy stethoscope. It's kind of interesting. It's flexible and stretchy enough that it kind of tightly molds to the shape of the fur or the clothing or body part, whatever it's placed on. And it squeezes out any sound-sucking kind of air bubbles, preventing them from reforming. So it basically just sticks right to you, forms right to whatever the surface is. The sensor works like a water stethoscope, filling any gaps, between it, and it's subject to absolutely no air bubbles to get in and dampen the sound. So this is kind of how it works. So the sound is converted to a digital signal, which is then transmitted to a nearby portable computer so that people can track an animal's physiology in real time. So it is literally real time right there. So researchers tested their device on 5 humans and 1 dog. They found that it works through up to 4 layers of clothing, like I said, and that the sensor works best when the clothing or fur sits right up against the skin. As well as some health tracking, the researchers say that the sensors could help turn findings from sniffer dogs into actual measurable data. So sniffer dogs are trained to exhibit behaviors, like sitting or barking when they detect a target object, such as like an explosive device or a person stuck inside something, kind of following an earthquake, whatever the case may be. When dogs alert to target options or objects, like, by sitting or whatever they are trained to do, such as bombs and stuff, their heart and breathing rates increase because they're excited to be rewarded for correctly identifying their target, right? So alerting this behavior can be kind of difficult to measure sometimes. The researchers say now that with this new sensor, it could establish baselines of normal heart and breathing rates from which to, kind of quantify the level of excitement of each dog. So this could be measured by, how much their vital signs diverge from the normal, and so now you can get like an accurate representation of these sniffer dogs of what is kind of going on, a more accurate representation, I guess. So by measuring how excited the dogs are, they might be able to tell the strength of the dog's reaction to the smell it detects, or work out, how sure the dog is of the finding of the desired object. So it kind of has all these different factors. The sensors have been tested only on dogs and humans so far, but they are going to be kind of trying to adapt them for other types of pets, as well as like horses and livestock. They're also integrating motion sensors to the system so they can track animal movements in real time. The software could use an artificial intelligent algorithm to indicate when pets are standing, sitting, or lying, as well as which direction they are facing and how their vital signs diverge from the normal. You could also hook up a smartphone app that will tell the owners how and where their pets are in real time. Sounds pretty impressive to me, I have to admit. Like, it sounds pretty cool. I'm curious to see kind of where it goes. Thought I would stay on this dog train, though, with a kind of feel-good story for you. A 16-year-old dog who is blind and deaf was carried off by a hawk, but she was found safely alive. Her name is Portia. She's a toy poodle, and she was snatched up by a hawk when she was just sitting on her front porch in Pennsylvania. So Portia's owner, Deborah, was absolutely frantic with worry, since the dog just disappeared. She spent hours searching the surrounding area, but found absolutely nothing. So when the evening kind of temperatures fell below freezing, she feared the worst. Her like 16 years old, blind and deaf. It's an older dog for sure. She just did not think that there was any chance she was going to make it. So then just 28 hours after Portia was dog-napped, Deborah was shocked to receive a call from the local veterinary clinic saying that they had a senior pup in their care. And she was like, that's impossible. There's no way she could have survived 28 hours in the bitter cold weather. Like, it was freezing. It's like, this is a 6.5-pound dog. She's blind. She's deaf. She's 16 years old. So Deborah went down there, and sure enough, it was Portia. So as it turns out, a neighbor had found Portia after the hawk had dropped her into a nearby yard just 4 blocks away from Deborah's house. So although the disabled dog was relatively kind of lethargic and tired in the clinic, they put Portia in a heating tank, following kind of just helping her out and kind of getting her back to normal, and she was surprisingly in actually pretty good health. Deborah says, how she got away, I have no idea. How she survived, I will never know. But I do know one thing, by the grace of God, this dog is still alive. So my next story is about a church in Cincinnati that just announced that they are paying off $46.5 million in medical debt for more than 45,000 families. Pretty incredible. That's a lot of money. So it's Crossroads Church, and they partnered with RIP Medical Debt, which is a medical debt relief nonprofit organization that helps wipe out debts for people in Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana. So some of these families, over 45,000 families, will receive a bright yellow envelope later this week, letting them know the good news that their medical debt has been completely wiped out. So they say, churches are at our best when we're a blessing to real people in our communities. That was the senior pastor, Brian Tome. He says, we're not here to just have big Sunday meetings.
he told his congregation about the opportunity to multiply our impact during one of their kind of ceremonies. And they said they'll get a letter that says, "Congratulations, your debt has been paid because someone loves you and there is a God that has not forgotten about you." So just this past Sunday, the pastor read out loud a message from one of the lucky people who got the money. It says, "I received this piece of mail in this bright yellow envelope and started to throw it away. But when I saw that it said your medical debt has been paid, I thought, seriously? Wait a minute. When I read it, I got emotional." The person continued, "Because I've been so needing a break with getting my credit together. I really appreciate the gift." So the church wiped out a debt for exactly 2,974 Kentucky households, which was $1.9 million in debt, and 503 Tennessee households for $1.5 million, and 136 Indiana homes for $200,000. So for every $100 donated to RIP medical debt, $10,000 in medical debt is wiped out, which is pretty cool. That's according to the New York-based organization RIP Medical Debt. So Crossroads Church Recent Deed constitutes the largest amount of medical debt eliminated in the non-profit's history. So Crossroads has made history for the medical debt. That is a pretty amazing. That is a lot of money. All right, it's time for a little bit of a break, but don't go anywhere. When we get back, I have some more amazing stories to share with you.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Now, this story is pretty cool. After a decade of historic growth, wind power is now the most used renewable energy source in the U.S. So, for the first time in U.S. history, the amount of electric power generated from wind in 2019 exceeded the amount sourced from hydroelectric. Pretty cool. This is definitely a big thing. So, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration newly released Electric Power Monthly article, so the exciting milestone means that the wind is now the top renewable source of electricity generation in the country. This is a position previously held by hydroelectricity for several decades. This is the first time. So, annual wind generation totaled 300 million MWH in 2019, exceeding hydroelectric generation by 26 million MWH. So wind generation has increased steadily during the past decade, in part because of the production tax credit, the PTC, which drove wind capacity additions. So that was extended, and then an annual hydroelectric generation has fluctuated between 250 million MWH and 320 million MWH in the past decade. So that's reflecting a stable capacity based and variable annual precipitation. So annual changes in the hydroelectric generation are primarily the result of variations in annual precipitation patterns and water runoff. So although weather patterns also affect wind generation in different regions, the capacity growth has been a predominant driver of annual changes in the wind generation. So both hydroelectric and wind generation follow seasonal patterns. Hydroelectric generation is typically greatest in the spring when the precipitation and melting snowpack increase water runoff, right? Seasonal patterns in wind generation vary across the country, depends where you are, but wind generation is usually greatest in the spring and fall. So wind capacity additions tend to kind of come online during the fourth quarter of the year, most likely because of the tax benefits. Wind capacity additions totaled 10 gigawatts in 2019. So 3.8 gigawatts installed in the fourth quarter, making 2019 the second largest year for wind capacity additions, second only to 2012. So as of the end of 2019, the U.S. had 103 gigawatts of wind capacity, nearly all of which about 77%, were installed in the past decade. So the U.S. has 80 gigawatts of hydroelectric capacity, most of which has been operating for several decades, and only 2 gigawatts of hydroelectric capacity that has been added in the past decade. And some of those additions involved converting previously non-powered dams. Pretty impressive. So although the total installed wind capacity surpassed total installed hydroelectric capacity in 2016, it wasn't until 2019 that the wind generation surpassed the hydroelectric generation. So the average annual capacity factors for the hydroelectric fleet between 2009 and 2019 ranged from 35% to 43%. And then the average annual capacity factors for the U.S. Wind fleet were lower, ranging from 28 to 35%. Capacity factors are the ratio of the electrical energy produced by a generating unit for a specified period of time to the electrical energy that could have been produced at a continuous full power operation during the same period. It's a lot of information for you. It's a lot of numbers, but that is pretty amazing. That has made U.S. history. After a decade of historic growth, the wind power is now the most used renewable energy source in the U.S. Definitely a huge milestone. Speaking of kind of eco-friendly things, I have an eco-activist story here. The eco-activist hit Fashion Week catwalk. This is so cool. With clothing made out of abandoned tents that were collected from music festivals. Clothing made out of abandoned tents from music festivals. How insane is that? So they are calling him the eco-warrior entrepreneur. He's 24 years old. His name's James Marshall. And he spent last summer scoring campsites and collecting abandoned tents following the Eden Festival and Scottish Borders and Kendall Calling in the Lake District. And he made a fashion line from all these collected tents from music festivals. And this line debuted this month on the London Fashion Week catwalk. Pretty insane. With the help of his friends and family, he amassed about 300 tents, which were then turned into trendy bucket hats, bum bags, and jackets by fashion designer Imogen Evans. He says, we also worked with a charity in England who collect tents at the end of festivals and give them to refugees. They don't normally collect broken tents, but they did, and they sent them all over to us. So that's pretty cool. The ultra-sustainable jacket was modeled on the catwalk at London Fashion Week in February under the brand name 10T. London Fashion Week was a really good experience. The days were pretty stressful, but it was such a good feeling to get that recognition. It was nice to have the validation that the processes and the idea works, and that we can take the idea to the market and continue with it. So James Marshall graduated from Edinburgh Napier University in 2018 with an MSc in Environmental Sustainability, and he came up with the idea for the 10T project the year he finished his studies. Shortly after he got his degree, he launched the brand. So the firm, which also produces duffel bags as well, made from the ground up tents, so cool, from tents, I can't even imagine, is hoping to sell their products online in mid-March and just in time for the festival season. So you can literally wear like abandoned tents or have like an abandoned tent duffel bag while you go to a festival and sleep in a tent. So cool. They say, we will stick with collecting from sources ourselves, but we will start looking at other forms of waste. We already have a few ideas. What I want to hold on to is that we collect, manifest, sort, and clean the materials and make the products ourselves. Definitely a very unique idea to get abandoned tents from festivals and make a clothing line out of it.
So you might know this name, Tony Robbins. Just this past Saturday, the world-renowned coach celebrated his 60th birthday by giving back, and he did it good. So he wanted to raise awareness and financial support for child sex trafficking. So he actually threw a benefit concert in Los Angeles on Saturday evening just to continue his lifelong mission to end human suffering. All of the donations, 100% of them, of the net proceeds, go to Operation Underground Railroad, the OUR, which is a non-profit mission whose wonder is featured in actually a upcoming Hollywood film. So that's pretty cool. But it was half concert and half a party. The event was described as Force for Good and had performances from big names like Pitbull, Melissa Etheridge, Andy Grammer, Cold War Kids, Leona Lewis, many other big names were there. All the money raised from tickets, so those tickets cost anywhere from $125 to $5,000 depending on where you wanted to be seated. But all of that goes to the OUR mission and to help expand its services to care for more children. It says, "We are forever grateful to Tony and Sage and their unwavering commitment to help us put an end to modern-day slavery." That's what the OUR founder, Tim Bullard, said. He is a former special agent for the Department of Homeland Security. He spent over a decade as an undercover operation in the fields. He says, "With the funds from this event, OUR will be able to rescue more children, enter new countries, and change thousands of lives." So if you haven't heard about the OUR, it was launched in 2014. It rescued 3,000 survivors and assisted in the arrest of 1,800 perpetrators worldwide. So it is a pretty big organization. So OUR is coming to big screen this fall. Like I said, it's being in a feature film called The Sound of Freedom. So the film's producer, Eduardo, says, "I'm grateful and inspired by Tony Robbins for turning his 60th birthday into a celebration of freedom dedicated to rescuing thousands more children from being kidnapped for sexual exploitation." Says Tony has devoted his life to helping people realize their passions and change their circumstances. "I cannot think of a better way to celebrate this milestone birthday than support his commitment to OUR with the goal of saving thousands more children from some of the worst conditions on Earth." Tony will also be getting an executive producer credit on the feature film. So that'll be pretty cool to see. All right, it is time for another break. Stay tuned, though. I have some more stories to share with you.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to GSMC, America's Still Beautiful podcast. Okay, I have two stories involving some pictures, some memories. It's definitely going to kind of give you a feel-good vibe. So Brian Bonani, he's from Kansas City. He's an architect. And he went above and beyond his kindness to deliver family memories to their rightful owners. This story is incredible. So he was recently taking measurements on a recently shuttered photo shop at a local shopping mall in his town when he saw a stack of 160 photo enlargements. Anything from graduations, baby announcement, wedding photos, family reunions, and all of these 160 photos were going to be going to the landfill because the store had closed. So he got permission to take home the store's unpaid or abandoned orders, and him and his family got to work documenting each of the items so that they could finally be reunited with the people who ordered them originally. So the architect's family kind of began their they call it the labor of love just last month. They managed to deliver more than 20 different orders to their grateful families. And he says he doesn't plan on stopping until each order has been fulfilled. Pretty incredible. He says these are people's photos from graduation, newborns. If anyone knows about getting family portraits taken, coordinating outfits, a Saturday when everyone can make it. Like, can you imagine getting there and then never getting the canvas from this photo shoot? I just had to, get them back. So he has literally gone above and beyond to deliver 160 different photos. He's still looking for some people to give some photos back, but definitely going above and beyond of his kindness. Like, this is a huge kindness act to make sure that these people get their family memories back. So, still staying on the picture train, this story is also incredible. Back in 1985, Mick and Tracy Hepworth were celebrating their recently officiated wedding. All their family members were there, all their friends were there, and unfortunately during their party, a pair of thieves swiped a handbag that contained a roll of film from the ceremony. So most of their wedding photos were stolen. But now they've been reunited with the photographs 35 years later. So the handbag belonged to Tracy's cousin. It was thrown on the ground actually as well when the family members chased the thieves who fled the scene. So they weren't able to find the handbag. It was thrown on the ground, must have been later on down the road, so they never found the handbag. They lost all hope of ever seeing their sentimental photos again, ever being reconnected with that. But however, fortunately, a woman named Angie found the empty handbag with the roll of film that very same night, and she actually had the snapshots developed. So she had no way of tracking down the people, of course, in the photographs, so she just stored them away in her house. And then last month, Angie was preparing to move, I guess since the fourth time since she developed the film, and she came across the photos once again. So she decided, you know what, I'm just going to try to connect these people with these photos. So she decided to post them to Facebook and ask if anybody knew who they might belong to. And actually, leave it to social media, within hours, she was put in touch with the rightful owners. So Karen, who was 55, said her handbag went missing while she was dancing in an English pub at her cousin's wedding reception on July 6, 1985. So this is her commenting on the Facebook post. She says, "We saw the two men running out, and my auntie ran out after them shouting. The lads ran off, and we lost all sight in them. The camera and film were still in my handbag. As far as we were concerned, the pictures were gone and never to be seen again." So then Angie picks up the story and says, "I was walking down the street when I spotted the handbag. The bag was empty, but there was a roll of film. But there was no internet then, so I just didn't know how I would find who was in the pictures. But I would have never thrown the photographs away." So she kept them all of these years, and then after Angie posted the photos on Facebook, everyone basically were sharing it and trying to find it. There were over 500 comments on the post, and then Karen got a message from an acquaintance saying, "I think I have spotted you on some old photographs." And all because of that, they're now reconnected with their photographs 35 years later. Their sentimental wedding photographs they finally got back. Angie actually offered to deliver them to the house, and the whole family was there waiting for her to give her some flowers. It was just another above and beyond kind gesture, to keep the photos all the time and then seek them out 35 years later, and of course leave it to social media to reconnect people with their sentimental photos. Absolutely incredible. Now, my next story is about another kind of ripple effect of kindness. It is so cute. A 2-year-old boy, his very simple gesture of love towards the pizza delivery man has generated a ripple effect of kindness for the man and his family. So last week, Lindsay Sheely was receiving a pizza delivery order at her home in Rhode Island when her son, Cohen, felt compelled to run out to the driver on the porch and offer him a hug and a kiss on the cheek as a thank you for dinner. So Lindsay just thought it was so sweet, that he would kind of run out and hug the pizza man and the pizza delivery man. And so then she kind of realized that they have a camera on their doorbell that might have caught it on camera. So it did. She caught this kind of 20-second clip on camera. I saw the video. It's so cute. But she posted it to Facebook, hoping that, maybe, just kind of posted to Facebook to share with people this kind of cute, warm moment. And this 20-second clip ended up on the timeline of Ryan Catterson, who is the pizza delivery man. So this is kind of where it gets even more amazing. So he contacted Lindsay and told her how delighted he was to find that there was a video of the exchange of that special moment. And so not only that, he told her that he recently lost his 16-year-old daughter, and Cohen's hug had meant the world to him. He said, "After losing my daughter this past week, it touched me because it was like she was there. It just really meant a lot to me." Since this heartwarming story of the incident, it's been shared on social media and local news outlets, and the GoFundMe page for the Cattersons family to raise money for his daughter's funeral expenses has way passed their original goal. They've gained more than $28,000 in donations. You never know what someone's going through, and that little 2-year-old boy and his hug just absolutely made the day of this pizza man who was going through a hard time. It really is a ripple effect of kindness. You have no idea how you're going to affect somebody with just a simple hug.
Now, my last story is about an 11-year-old boy. His name is Obochos Peters. He's a 5th grader, and he is making a huge difference. The things that he is doing is absolutely incredible at 11 years old. He's opened up a thrift shop for low-income families. So like I said, he's a 5th grader, and he's on a mission to make those who are less fortunate able to dress to impress. This is in Brooklyn, New York. He runs Obocho's Closet. So it's a thrift store selling affordable donated clothes and shoes for kids under $10. Pretty incredible. So this project initially started in 2018 as an online thrift shop, but it outgrew its digital life pretty quickly. And in December, he opened up his first brick and mortar store in Brooklyn neighborhood of Flatbush. So he was able to get his dream of the ground thanks to some GoFundMe donations, which he explained the inspirational kind of backstory to his mission. So let me explain this a little bit. He wrote after seeing the Avengers Infinity War. So basically he asked his mom, Sasha, for 8 toys from the film. But she could not afford the toys. So instead, Obocho took matters into his own hands, which is pretty incredible for an 11-year-old boy, and he decided to sell clothes and shoes that he no longer wore to pay for the toys himself. He says, "I realize that other families must face the same challenges when taking care of their children. The idea turned into the mission I have today, to help the community grow." He says, "I was inspired by all the superheroes helping to make the world a better place. I wanted to be a hero myself by helping my mom." How touching is that? So Sasha, she's a single mom. She's from St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. And so she helped Obocho launch his first website. And then she just kind of spotted the entrepreneur spirit in him, signed him up for some business classes after school at 11 years old. She says you have to nurture kids when they come up with ideas, and you have to pay attention to everything they say because they're telling you how to groom them to be a better version of themselves. So because his closet is for profit business, he wrote on the GoFundMe page saying that he found a different way to give back to his community. He's hosting free financial literacy seminars geared towards teaching parents and kids how to save for college or pursue other goals like entrepreneurship. All that he's done has even earned him the title Hero of the Month in June from Adams. Says this young man personifies the great things young people are doing across our country and particularly in Brooklyn. pretty incredible story at 11 years old. Entrepreneur in the making. All right, that is the last story I have to share with you today. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Jo. As always, do not forget to hit that subscribe button, like and follow us on social media, and leave a 5-star review. It's greatly appreciated, and I cannot wait to share more stories with you next time. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from social media news to marketing news, and even weird news, the GSMC Podcast Network has you covered. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast.